Congratulations, everyone. Behind Taproot, this is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's take a look at our top story. The long-anticipated Bitcoin upgrade Taproot activating at block 709,632 in the wee hours of Sunday morning, opening the door for developers to integrate new features that will improve privacy, scalability, and security on the network. Bitcoin Core contributor Peter Wheel noting that the real work will be in building wallets, protocols that build on top of it to make use of its advantages. I'm very excited to see where it takes us. On that note, let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index currently trading at 64,200 and change. Bitcoin is slightly down about 0.2% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin's price spiking to $66,000 earlier Monday morning, partially erasing the losses from last Wednesday. Mumbai-based crypto asset manager Minting M suggesting technical charts signal an impending boost from a bullish continuation pattern, saying, quote, BTC has broken out of the flag pattern and buying momentum is expected to continue, going so far as to predict that Bitcoin could break the six-figure mark in the fourth quarter of this year. A bull flag represents consolidation after a notable uptrend. It's a pause that usually recharges the bull's engines for a continued move higher. Friday's defense of the 62,500 level and the subsequent recovery have established another higher low on the daily chart and reinforced the flag breakout confirmed last Monday. The immediate resistance is seen at the record high reached on Wednesday, just below $69,000 following the release of a hotter than expected U.S. inflation data. The move was quickly dismantled on renewed fears of faster rate hikes by the Federal Reserve. Equinix, a Singapore-based crypto exchange, foresees a rally to $88,000, echoing Minting M and citing key support at around $58,000. All right, joining us now to discuss is quantum economics analyst Jason Deane. Hello there, Jason. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. So, do you believe that Taproot is already priced in and all the benefits therein? And is that the case?
Well, that's a great question, isn't it? I mean, you've got to understand Taproot is a very technical update. So for people like even you and me, I mean, we're involved in the industry in some way, but we're not involved at the coding level of Bitcoin. And that's really where the magic's happening here, right at that level. So you and I are not going to see much difference on a day-to-day basis at the moment. That'll all come later on as the developments take place. So in terms of market reaction, there's not a lot. That's kind of what I expected. The only time I was really expecting anything significant here was if something went wrong with the Taproot deployment. Because I think I've mentioned to you before in the past that one of the very few scenarios where I see Bitcoin really not succeeding from where we are now is the self-inflicted wound, right? So as we got a little bit closer to Taproot deployment at the weekend, I did start to get a little bit nervous, probably without reason, but I couldn't help start thinking, it works pretty well. Do we really need to play with it? But because of that fear. But no, in terms of market movements, I wasn't really expecting anything at this point.
It's interesting you say that because I did see a tweet from Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, saying that, thanking the Bitcoin network, saying that this was kind of a test net to see if Litecoin should also update its protocol with something similar to Taproot and using Bitcoin as a test net, if you will. So you're saying investors don't really even know about it. So some folks say it is priced in because it's been talked about for months. But you're saying, most investors don't even know about it. So if there aren't events, it'll be likely down the line.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's the case because because it is so technical, and that's the thing here, it is deeply technical. For a lot of people, it's not going to make too much difference. I mean, I did have a couple of people tweet me or DM me saying, well, it hasn't made much difference to price. And as I explained, I wasn't really expecting that for any particular reason. But Taproot really starts a new dawn of development. There's a whole lot of new possibilities that lay ahead. And it's those things that we'll probably see affecting price in due course. But it takes a while, you know. I mean, we're still developing SegWit, and that was 4 years ago. It takes a while for this stuff.
It's interesting that you feel a bit of anxiety about it, just, you know, whether or not it'll work, how solid it is, and why tinker with something if it's not broken. But I mean, what do you think the significance is of activating Taproot? You know, it was done in a very slow, methodical, process-oriented way. It had to get 90% of miners to signal their support for it. So in terms of looking at the network and the significance, you know, in a democratic way of how it was brought together, I would love to have you weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly say, this is deliberately long, a deliberate long and slow process, and it absolutely should be, because we are dealing with a huge amount of money in dollar terms now, and the custodians of that system really must make sure they get this absolutely right going forward. So, as you know, I think I'm a miner. I was signaling for Taproot right from the very, very start, because I believe fundamentally, even though I was nervous about the actual implementation, that Bitcoin needed that extra layer of development. So the idea, remember, is to keep the base layer pretty simple, but allow second layer development. So things like Lightning and other things that we can do through TapScript.
Taking a look at Bitcoin price, where do you see Bitcoin headed?
Well, as you say, we've been consolidating for a while now, and that's a very bullish sign. We have seen the data coming through that's showing that supply and exchanges is still falling overall. So I remain very bullish. I mean, I'm generally very bullish long term anyway, as you know. So I still think that we are looking extremely strong going forward. I think the fundamentals are excellent. I think the demand dynamics that we're seeing are fantastic. And of course, we know the supply ones. So I do think we will be looking at, just in my opinion, higher, a little bit more price discovery for the end of the year. Let's put it that way.
Price target for the end of the year, or you know, in short term versus long term?
Well, long term, of course, you know, it could go anywhere because of the combination of Bitcoin and what we're seeing with increasing money supply. But short term, if you're really going to push me for something for towards the end of this year, I think we are going to be higher than we are now. There are a lot of people forecasting six figures. I think it's possible. I do think it's possible, but it remains to be seen.
All right. Another Bitcoin bull with the laser eyes. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. That was quantum economics analyst Jason Deane. Coming up, we'll discuss further with Hut 8 and their latest hot earnings reports. Welcome back. Looking at some more top stories. Van Eck will launch a Bitcoin futures ETF under the ticket XBTF on the Chicago-based CBOE exchange next Tuesday after the SEC rejected their physical Bitcoin ETF application. Van Eck Bitcoin futures ETF is the third such fund to win SEC approval, but they have delayed their launch for unknown reasons. And Hut 8's revenue rose over 700% in the third quarter, beating analyst estimates. The Canadian crypto miner beat third quarter revenue and earnings estimates and held about $342 million in Bitcoin. Joining us now to discuss is Shane Downey, Chief Financial Officer at Hut 8. Hello there, Shane. So we'll dive into earnings in a bit, but first I want to ask you about Taproot again. I assume Hut 8 signaled in favor of this upgrade.
Ultimately, we're in favor of the ongoing resiliency of the network, which, if nothing else, the China ban that came down earlier this year, in our view, was the sort of a bigger test than almost we could have ever imagined. And Bitcoin, the network, very much passed with flying colors. And it's exciting to see Taproot come through and sort of no issues and effectively a non-event.
You mentioned the China crackdown. How has that benefited, if at all, Hut 8?
Well, as an established sort of institutional grade miner, we benefited from an increase in market share almost immediately in very simple terms. So the fact that we were up and running and had significant hash capacity served us very well. We've strongly expected that hash rate globally was going to come back fairly sharply, which it has been, which isn't a surprise, and ultimately speaks again to the strength and clearly ongoing adoption and interest in Bitcoin.
Have you been, buying up equipment from China that has had to move out of the country, or partnering with any Chinese companies or mining firms to capture more of the market?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we had significant inbound inquiry from a variety of groups in China. We've long made known our relationship with MicroBT. They've been a terrific partner for us. Earlier this year, we reached certification with them as a certified repair center here in North America. Twice in recent months we've been able to execute on what we view as a sort of a somewhat opportunistic transaction with them. And again, fundamentally though, we've been very, very happy with both their ability to perform and get gear to us, and then most importantly, the performance of that gear once it's on site.
Circling back to Taproot, so far only a little more than about half of the known Bitcoin nodes are signaling support for the upgrade. The rest are running old software, which means they will not be able to enforce the new rules of Taproot until they upgrade to the latest update, Bitcoin Core 21.1. Have you upgraded? Has Hut 8 upgraded all their systems to activate Taproot?
Well, as a Bitcoin miner, we're not operating a node, but rather mining Bitcoin. So we've been, as I mentioned earlier, unimpacted and status quo from a mining perspective.
Okay, fair enough. So it was a breathtaking third quarter for Hut 8. Perhaps you can go through some of the factors that are buoying the mining industry.
Yeah, well, sort of touched on earlier the China ban that came down in the middle of the summer. So certainly for Hut 8 and other incumbent miners, it's been an excellent time. For us, we've been very strategic with getting a third location announced. That's going to be in North Bay, Ontario, which is really exciting for us, to diversification across Canada with the rest of our operations in Alberta, of course. Really Q3, the combination of strong, relative to earlier in the year, strong Bitcoin price performance, along with the scope of our existing operations, like you said, made for a very strong Q3.
What are you expecting in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think we're certainly relatively optimistic around the near-term expectations for Bitcoin. We've all come to learn this year more than ever that Bitcoin can move up and can move down, but we're certainly optimistic on that front. And then a lot of our dialogue with investors and prospective investors has very much been around getting our third site operational. So the boots are on the ground right now, making that happen. So we expect to have that site ready to go by the end of this year, and bring incremental hash rate from our two most recent MicroBT orders on board, Q1 of 2022.
And just one last question. What is Hut Hut 8 doing with its Bitcoin? Are you using it for collateral? Are you just holding on to it? Are there any plans to do anything with it, or just accumulating?
Yeah, fundamentally, right now we're hodlers. We've got the largest self-mined stack of Bitcoin of any public company in the world. We've since earlier this year announced an arrangement with Genesis, and then secondly with Galaxy, where we've got Bitcoin on loan with them for generating fiat denominated yield. And otherwise, we hold our Bitcoin in custody. We're definitely long-term holders and bullish long-term, and that strategy has worked very well of late.
Yeah. Shane, well, congratulations on the strong quarter. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for the update. That was Hut 8 CFO Shane Downey. And that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. We'll do it all over again tomorrow at 3 p.m. in New York. Also join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for First Mover. You're watching CoinDesk TV.